Well, good afternoon, everyone. This nice, warm, beautiful day. Welcome to the September 19th meeting of the Rotary Club of Louisville. I'm Ken Salvaggi, President-elect, and Paul Hallett, Harris Fellow +1. I'm sitting in for Lori today. She'll be back next week. Providing our communication today, Mary Ellen Arnott, Vice Chair of the International Services Committee.
In honor of the United Nations International Day of Peace this Saturday, I'm sharing a poem, a proclamation for peace. Whereas the world is a house on fire, the nations are filled with shouting, whereas hope seems small, sometimes a single bird on a wire left by migration behind. Whereas kindness is seldom in the news, and peace an abstraction, while war is real. Whereas words are all I have, whereas my life is short and I am afraid, whereas I am free despite all fire and anger and fear. Be it therefore resolved, a song shall be my calling, a song not yet made shall be vocation and peaceful word, the work of my remaining days.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. Now our pledge and four-way test, Lisa Chardin, the Executive Director, co-founder of the First Hour Grief Response.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, the four-way test.
Is it true? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you, Lisa. And now, Rotarians, please introduce yourself and your guests. Give their name, title, and organization. And guests, please stand when you're introduced. No guests? All right. Louis, you don't have any work to do. You have one. Okay. We have some congratulations to Rotarians who are recently in the spotlight. Janet Patterson was elected to the YPAL Emerging Leaders Program, Fall 2024 class. It's the Young Professionals Association of Louisville. Congrats to Janet. Junior Achievement recently celebrated their 75th anniversary and the organization's impact on over 1.5 million students. Congratulations to CEO Jennifer Helgeson. Board Vice Chair Chris Manto. Today's your final chance to get tickets for the volleyball Rotary Day volleyball court. That's Sunday at 12:30. Big win last night over Kentucky. This team is gearing up for a national title, and Nebraska is one of the best in the country. So you heard Josh say he wants an all-time record crowd, so get your tickets and let's go support the Louisville Volleyball Women Sunday. Social Activities Committee invites you to join us at 5 Wednesday, October 16th for a Rotary Happy Hour on the patio of Hop Atomic. Mentoring for a Rotary Honor Scholar started this week at Western High School the other day. Good turnout. We had 11 of our fellow Rotarians and 33 students at Western. And next week, next Wednesday, the 25th, will be at Iroquois High School. See our chair of our HS, Craig Mooney, if you'd like to be part of the monthly program. Craig is over here at this table. Does a great job with it. It's a great thing to get involved with. You can do it once or twice. or every week. There are many special things about the club, and one is the number of years many of our members have been serving with us. 61 current members have been in the club for more than 25 years. Several of them are here today. We have a special membership pin that we would like to present to recognize milestone anniversaries. The two longtime members to recognize today, Pat Payne, who joined in April of 1990, and Billy Scott, who joined in June of 1979. Come on up for your pin, Billy. That is awesome. Okay, Jeff, chemo riders, come on up and tell us how your ride is going. You're only halfway?
Yeah. Howdy guys, I'm a Rotarian from Caro, Michigan, a little town you've never heard of. But last year my son graduated, so I set off on a bit of a journey. And I have traveled 8,071 miles so far. I've spent a couple hundred nights in my tiny little tent. I've changed dozens of flat tires and ruined 3 bikes. But I'm just getting started because all of that is nothing compared to the 10 or 20 miles that stand in between too many people and the cancer treatments that could save their lives. We think a lot about the research, but none of that does any good if somebody can't get to the appointment. And I believe that every patient deserves to get the recommended treatment on the recommended schedule. It's not that easy for everybody though. So the American Cancer Society has a fantastic program called Road to Recovery that tries to overcome those transportation barriers. It works a lot like Uber, except that all of the drivers are volunteers. The rides are totally free to the patients, and the goal obviously is to save some lives. Fantastic program, goes back to the early 80s, helped countless people. The problem is that it's been way short on drivers since the pandemic. And right now, more than half of all the requests are being denied because we just don't have somebody available in that area on that day to help out. I'm an optimist, so I think we can fix that. And Rotary, is a very magical organization, as you all well know. But I set out last year, and so I'm still busy creating hope in the world. If you've ever been to an ACS event, you know that word hope is at the center of everything we do. We're always hoping that the next batch of research will be a big step forward, that people will go get screened in time, that a biopsy will come back negative. We hope that insurance companies will cover the doctor's treatment plan, that employers will be understanding of all the time somebody needs to take off. I had a friend who just lost a 7-year battle, and she got through every day with the hope that she could see her daughter graduate. She didn't make it, but we do everything that we can in our power, and then we hope. So when my son went off to college, I hopped on my bike and set off with the hope that I could find some drivers along the way. This program is it's super flexible, super rewarding. It's all at your schedule. Once you're in the program, you see what's needed in the area, and when there's a request that fits your schedule, you raise your hand. And maybe you take them for the full round trip, or maybe you just do one way and somebody else will get the other half. So whatever you can offer makes a huge difference. So here in Jefferson County, so far this year, volunteer drivers have given 334 rides, which is amazing and better than most of the places I've been to. But there was still another 139 that had to be denied. And from my understanding is that most of those rides have been given by a core group of super drivers that are just going way above and beyond the call of duty. So we really need to deepen the bench and get some people to help them out. And some of the surrounding counties, like Floyd County, is only fulfilling 35% of the requests. Clark and Oldham are at 0%. I know the population is smaller there, so it's a different situation, but we need at least one driver in each county to get this done. I think about all the health challenges that are just too much for one person to do much about it. We really know that with polio, right? Like, we do all the things we can do, but the boots on the ground are on the other side of the world, and there's only so much we can do here. But cancer is right here in the community with us, so, and sometimes all somebody needs is a ride, so one person can have a huge impact. If you think you or somebody you know might be able to help out with that, please, chemoriders.org is the site I've set up to funnel all the information over to the ACS, or just come talk to me afterwards. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. It's been a year already. Started last October. Wow. How big is the club in Caro?
I think official membership is a little over 50. Maybe half that at tip for me.
Wow. Wow. What are we, the 13th largest? So hopefully
You know what, a little bit bigger.
you're not overwhelmed, but now good luck with the rest of it. You have another year to go, you said. Wow. All right, it's a pleasure to introduce Carlos, who's going to introduce our speaker today.
Thank you. It is my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Admiral Ingrid Rader, a cryptologic warfare officer. Admiral Rader's active duty operational assignments have included naval reconnaissance support detachment Misawa, where she deployed with Fleet Air Reconnaissance Squadron 1 to Manama, Bahrain, Okinawa, and Iwakuni, Japan. She's been with the Fleet Information Warfare Center, where she deployed with Commander Carrier Group 8. Give me a second, it's a long introduction. Embarked aboard the USS Theodore Roosevelt to the Mediterranean, the Arabian Gulf, and in support of Operation Deny Flight. As a reserve officer, she's mobilized to Afghanistan in support of Operation Enduring Freedom, where she served as chief of the Future Operations Communication Team on the International Security Assistance Forces Joint Command Staff. Admiral Rader has also had shore assignments, including Naval Network Warfare Command, a year on active duty leading as the lead information officer and strategic communication planner for Commander Pacific Fleet Joint Task Force 519, and community lead for cryptologic warfare on the Commander Naval Information Force Reserve Staff. She's commanded Navy Reserve Navy Information Operation Commands in Utah, Florida, and Arizona, Naval Reserve Joint Intelligence Center, U.S. Central Command, 0470 in Texas, Naval Reserve U.S. 10th Fleet in Maryland, and Naval Information Force Reserve Region, Mid-Atlantic in Virginia. Admiral Rader's personal decorations include the Legion of Merit, Defense Military Service Medal, the Military Service Medal, Joint Service Commendation Medal, the Navy Commendation Medal, the Navy Achievement Medal, and various unit and campaign awards. Thank you very much for your service.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I want to thank you all for the invitation to speak here today. Certainly, it's a big honor, and it's been great just to be in Louisville for a couple days, sort of a whirlwind trip. But our mission here is really to talk with people in a non-fleet concentration area, and to tell you a little bit about our Navy, your Navy, and the importance of what it's doing, and just to familiarize folks with what we're doing today. Some of the areas of our country have become less familiar with the Navy over the past couple of decades. And so we're finding that people just don't really understand what we're doing, which of course impacts recruitment and impacts that understanding of why having a strong, powerful Navy is really important. So that's why we're here. And so without further ado, I'm gonna jump into the brief. Although, actually, before I jump into the brief, I do want to mention one thing. So my connection to Louisville is through my mother, who she worked in library science her whole career, and her last job was actually here at the University of Louisville, where she was the Dean of Libraries. And then she retired in 2010. But one thing that my mother also did was when she moved here, she became a member of this club. And I didn't actually realize that initially. I knew she was a Rotarian, but I didn't put it all together. And then just recently, I found her card. And so it says, Rotarian, Ms. Hannah B. Rader, Rotarian Club of Louisville, Kentucky. That's you all, right? And it's effective 9/29/97. So
how many people in this room were a member of our club in 97?
awesome. So maybe you remember Hannah Laura. Oh yeah, okay. A little bit of a German accent. She immigrated here as a teenager, actually, and she went to high school in Ann Arbor, Michigan. She had to learn English while she was going to school. Anyway, kind of a neat story. She also escaped East Germany with her mother. So, but most interestingly, she was a member of this club. So, so now I'll jump into the briefing. All right. So I want to really convey 4 things in the course of this. Number 1, our Navy mission. And secondly, the strategic importance of the maritime environment. Third, I want to explain why the Navy has to be present. The Navy has to be visible, it has to be present. We can't do what we do by sitting on the shore somewhere. We have to be out there. We have to be visibly present. And then finally, I want to tell you a little bit about our evolving capabilities, but do that in the context of the threat environment that we currently find ourselves in. So with that, let's go to the next slide. All right, so as we reflect on our history, we've always been a maritime country. And the importance of the seas has been there throughout our history. The seas have been the lifeblood of our nation. Our maritime strength, combined with the support of allies and partners, has been instrumental in guaranteeing freedom of navigation, maintaining peace, and establishing a rules-based order grounded in fairness. To address these challenges that we have today with the shifting landscape and the threats that we face, we have to think, act, and operate differently than we ever have before. And this new approach that we're taking involves integrating conventional capabilities with hybrid, unmanned, and disruptive technologies. And we're evolving to stay ahead of our adversaries, leveraging wargaming, experimentation to create warfighting advantages. But of course, this isn't easy, and everything we do has to be viewed through a warfighting lens. We have to maintain the Navy's status as the world's preeminent fighting force, prioritizing readiness and capabilities at sea, as well as logistics and the support required. And that's crucial for keeping our Navy fit to fight. So let's go to the next slide, thank you. Today, more than 41 million US jobs, 26%, are directly or indirectly tied to global trade. 26% of U.S. manufacturing jobs depend on exports, and more than 20% of all U.S. agricultural products are exported. And from what I understand, Kentucky exports about $40 billion annually, with about 109,000 jobs that are associated with export. So that's important. And just looking at where I work for Commander Pacific Fleet in Hawaii, looking at the area of responsibility there, more than half of our trade goes through the South China Sea. And that area is highly contested right now. I'll tell you, just every single time that I go to one of our operations and intelligence briefings out in Hawaii at our headquarters, there are more and more incidents that we talk about that involve China bullying smaller countries, escalating things right up to the level of conflict and stopping just short, to the point where our ship captains and our aircraft pilots have to show restraint, they have to be smarter, they have to pull back in order to be safe and keep things from escalating and becoming international incidents. So that's our continuous effort right now, just working that integrated deterrence. So next slide, please. Decisive naval power is key to what we need to show and demonstrate and do in order to maintain that deterrence. And every single day, our sailors are out there doing that for their country, which of course is our mission, to protect the homeland and to protect America's interests globally. So next slide. So right now, the threat environment in the Pacific, as I mentioned, is really high. We call it a competition environment. So we look at our situation militarily as either being in competition, being in crisis, or being in conflict. We obviously do not want to be in crisis. We don't want to have to do that, although everything we do is about being ready for that, everything. All our training, all the resiliency that we work with our people on, and our capabilities. But what we want is to stay in the competition environment that we're in and to deter the adversary. In other words, we want Xi Jinping to wake up every day saying to himself and the rest of the CCP that today is not the day that you want to go after Taiwan and incur the wrath and response of the United States and our allies and partners. So just to mention briefly, Russia is also something that we look at and that we deal with in our theater. And then we also obviously are involved with the Houthis. And over the past approximately a year, we have actually taken down, I think, 1,500 drones. And it's just, it's been a continuous effort. We've fired about 62 missiles, I think, to help with that effort. But it's not just us. It's a collective international response to what's going on. And so just the amount of coordination that something like that takes is absolutely amazing. And it's having that continuous relationship with our allies and partners that makes it possible to do that. And yeah, I'm just thinking about that 1,500 number because I might be a little bit wrong on that. But anyway, it's been a lot, and the amount of missile firing that's been done has actually been extraordinary when you think about it. And the area there, of course, is very constrained. So the response time is very short. So that makes it quite a challenge. All right, so our key strategic advantage, of course, is that work that we do with our partners and allies. And in fact, for any sort of conflict with China, we know that information warfare would be at the forefront in terms of the warfare area that we would need to be able to counter and protect if something happens. And just recently, we established a new trilateral partnership with Japan and Australia focused on information warfare, which is really huge. Because together, we of course can do more than any one of us alone, but that's a first. So we're building these new relationships and partnerships, which is very important. So next slide. All right, so as we move forward and continue to evolve our capabilities, because one thing that we are never going to have enough of, especially given the current budget challenges that we face and things like that, we're never going to have all the capabilities, all the ships that we'd ideally like to have, all of the high-tech capabilities that we want, but what we're doing is focusing on the ones that we can get and the tactics and techniques for how to employ them in the most effective way. So we want to optimize what we have and work to get those technical and advanced capabilities in the right places so that we can counter a threat like we might find in a conflict with China. All right, so first of all, for any of you who are working in the support or weapons or capabilities development fields that might help the military prepare for this, I want to thank you. Obviously, we can't do what we do without a strong industrial base here in the United States to help provide those capabilities, the weapons, the systems, the things that we use and rely upon. So thank you for that. And our next slide is good. Our people is our strategic advantage, of course. So here you see our Secretary of the Navy, Del Toro, with a group of folks aboard an aircraft carrier. And for us today, as we bring new recruits and sailors into our Navy, and recruiting is a challenge, as I mentioned, but we work really hard to not only bring them in and train them to be able to use high-end capabilities and in a technically challenging environment, but we also need to make sure that they're resilient and that they're the top war fighters that they can be. So there's a lot of emphasis on not only being ready in terms of training and doing difficult things, but also mental health and connectedness and resiliency, the kinds of things that we need so that they can excel. Because the fight that they're going to face, if unfortunately it comes to that, is going to be a fight like we haven't seen before. It's going to be, we are assessing it's going to be absolutely horrible for our folks. If we have a Navy ship hit by a Chinese missile, for example, that's something we haven't seen since World War II. That type of carnage, for lack of a better term. But getting our folks ready and also making sure that we can outthink and outperform and outmaneuver. We are working all those areas as aggressively as we can to be ready. So first of all, I'll touch a little bit on surface warfare. where we have everything from 97,000-pound aircraft carriers to small, flexible littoral combat vessels. And what we do with all of these ships is we try to make sure that they are deployed into key strategic areas constantly. So our global force projection, we try to cover all these key areas and make sure that we're present, that we're visible where we need to be. Because that makes a really big difference to our partners and allies, especially in the Pacific, where we have thousands and thousands of miles of open ocean. And we have lots of smaller countries that even if they're not our allies and partners right now, they still rely on us to counter the threats that they have and the challenges that they face. So we try to make sure that we can demonstrate that presence, which is a lot. We don't have all the ships we'd like to have, but we try to use the ones that we have that way very strategically. And then undersea warfare. So that's been a Navy premier capability for a very long time. And right now, same as with our surface ships, we're making sure that we have our subs deployed where they need to be. We have currently an effort to replace some of our older strategic ballistic missile submarines with a newer class, so that's coming online. And we try to make sure, again, that they're strategically deployed. So submarines not only have everything from torpedoes to tomahawks to ballistic missiles, but probably the biggest thing that submarines do for us is they're stealthy. And so they can be where we need them to be, ideally without the adversary knowing. And air warfare. So one of the first questions a president normally asks in time of crisis, right, is where is the nearest aircraft carrier? Our aircraft carriers currently, we only have so many, and right now 2 of them are in the 5th Fleet Theater in the Gulf. But we make sure that our aircraft carriers can get where they need to get, because what that does for us, of course, is deliver capabilities like the FA-18 Super Hornet, helos, and other types of aviation in areas where we don't need to ask permission from any other country to be able to operate. We can operate off that aircraft carrier. And the Super Hornet, by the way, can do everything from air combat to refueling to electronic warfare, so very capable platform. Special warfare. So we have one of the premier special warfare capabilities in the world with our Navy SEALs. And our Navy Special Warfare folks are part of the United States Special Operations Command, and they can go anywhere in the world, usually before anyone else, and they can take care of things that require that precision capability. Next slide. We also have explosive ordnance disposal, and these folks cover a variety of diverse, interesting jobs to include parachuting, diving, all kinds of ability to go into places and do things that help set the stage for operations and also help to get after some special threats that we need to take care of. And then information warfare, these are the folks that work in space, cyberspace, electronic warfare, information warfare to include messaging and things like that. They also do signals intelligence, and information professional, which is the folks that provide communications and networks and make sure that we're able to communicate. And then Navy medicine. Navy medicine is a lot more robust and a lot more capable than you might realize. It's one of the areas where we really work closely with our partners and allies, and we do everything from expeditionary medicine to helping to teach and train, whether it's other military services or folks around the world for humanitarian assistance and things like that. But all of those efforts, I just want to say, have become even more important given the climate change, the things that are happening with the oceans shifting and causing more of a threat to the populations, especially I'm thinking of the Pacific now, where the vast majority of people live on the coastlines, and all of that can easily be threatened in a typhoon or any sort of weather type of challenge. So basically, in summary, I'll just say that the Navy's mission has and always will be to protect our homeland and defend America's interests around the world. And our capabilities right now are evolving as fast as we possibly can do it to make sure that we are prepared for the threats that we're seeing, the challenges that we're finding. And the Navy has to be present. We have to be out there, and we have to demonstrate our capability so that we can maintain that deterrence. And other than that, I'll just finish by saying that for me, it's an honor to serve, and thank you again for having us here today.
Thank you, Admiral. I'm thank you for your service. I did have an opportunity once to spend a night on an aircraft carrier, and I cannot tell you how impressed I was by the sophistication of the way it's operated, and also by the youth. I think the average age is about 20 on an aircraft. It's pretty amazing.
It's true.
Yeah. So I have a question that may not be one you expected, though. I just finished a book by Liz Espinoza called Imminent. And in the book, it talks about the 20-year battle for the government to acknowledge and disclose the existence of UAPs, which some used to be called UFOs. They did that because of national security questions. And you served on the Roosevelt, which has probably one of the most notorious incidents that was recorded on video and Rader. I'm kind of wondering, what is the Navy's view on UAPs today, and is that viewed as a real national security threat?
Well, that's really a great question. You know, I have to tell you though, unfortunately, I am not an expert on that, and I honestly, I can't tell you what the Navy's view is on UAPs, what used to be known as UFOs. I can tell you I had a great tour on the Theodore Roosevelt and got to do things that I never thought I'd be able to do in the Navy. So not to get off target, but I'm information warfare, so cryptologic warfare at the time, but I actually was able to qualify as a conning officer and drive the aircraft carrier. And that was the most amazing experience for me at the time. So I got my conning qual. But all I can do for you on your question is I can take it back and get you an answer. And I'll do that. I mean, I'm a little curious myself, but honestly, we don't really talk about that too much where I'm at, so that's a new one. Thank you.
Hi, Susan Zepeda. Thank you for your remarks and for your service. You've hinted at the asymmetric challenge of fighting against a China that is building warships much more rapidly than we seem to be able to. You talked about the importance of alliances and other aspects of warfare. Can you comment a bit further about how we realistically can stave off the threat of an armed and ready China?
That's a great question, and that is probably the number one concern that we have right now. Everything that we're doing for sure at Pacific Fleet is focused on that. I'll just really quick give you a tiny bit of history. So over the past couple years that I've been in this job that I'm in, we have gone from a traditional approach to information warfare as sort of an effort that's there but not hugely optimized, to under Admiral Paparo establishing not only a Directorate of Maritime Information Warfare, so elevating it to be on par with the operations and the other key elements, but also we've created a separate command, the Fleet Information Warfare Command Pacific, and the entire focus of that command is on information warfare, things like cyber and space. So to be honest with you, right now, the reach and the capability of China is such that there's really no place, there's nowhere to hide, so to speak. There's no way that we're going to have an automatic advantage just by showing it. And first of all, aside from that, we have to get to the fight, which is going to be a 1,000-mile journey for us, unless we happen to already be in theater. And even then, it's a big ocean, big AOR, and China's got it pretty much covered. So the things that we can do and the things that we're looking at that I can tell you about are basically leveraging capabilities and technologies that will enable us, that will help us to maneuver and will help us to be able to do what we need to do to provide a little bit of breathing room. So we have a lot of things, a lot of capabilities that we're going to need to counter, and we have to make sure that we're in a position to be able to do that. And again, we can't do it alone. But as we prepare for that worst possible scenario of something happens and we have to, we end up in a crisis or heaven forbid a conflict with China, we want to do everything we can prior to that to demonstrate our alliances, our connectedness with our major partners and our allies. And also, we want to be able to demonstrate our capability, our ability to operate jointly with our Marine Corps, Army and Air Force, and Coast Guard shipmates, and also our allies and partners. All of that is really going to be key. We know that our adversaries are not happy when we operate. The closer we are to Japan, the more we see the response. South Korea, smaller islands, the Philippines, and right now we've been working with the Philippines pretty closely to help there. But all of those relationships are going to really matter, and as we get capabilities that we can talk about, you'll probably hear about them. But for us, a lot of it is also going to come down to how we do what we do, how we war game that, how we work to prepare. One of the strongest advantages that I think that we have is we have a diverse, not only do we have people in our Navy from all parts of the country, all walks of life, all different backgrounds, but we leverage those diverse approaches and thought processes, and as we model and wargame things, we look at things from as many different angles as we can. And actually doing that kind of wargaming and experimentation with our allies and partners gives us another level of different approaches. And we feel like that's something that our adversaries don't necessarily do, but that benefits us because we also have confidence and great trust in those very young sailors that are working on the aircraft carrier. And that's another thing our adversaries don't normally do, is trust in people like that. So I think what that does for us, that's a real advantage, is that we have people that can think, even at the lowest level, can think and put forward ideas and come up with solutions on the spot. And we're going to need that. If we end up in a situation where, for example, we can't talk to each other because the adversary has done something, we're going to need to be able to rely on those capabilities, those sailors, wherever they are, or those Marines, or those soldiers or airmen to make those decisions. And so that's what we're working on. I know it's not a super specific answer, but it's the best I've got right now.
Admiral, thank you for being here and for your career of service. My name is Tracy Holliday. I come from a military family. My father was career Navy. My one brother and I served in the Navy. We had one black sheep who went to the Air Force. Of course, did better than all of us. But you mentioned, in fact, you just mentioned it a minute ago, the extreme importance of personnel. And you also mentioned earlier recruiting. So I have sort of a two-part question, and that is, how is recruiting in general going? And a subset of that question is, with the increasing technology of what you do, you've got to recruit some pretty smart people. And I'm hearing that that's becoming more and more difficult. So perhaps you can speak to how you're addressing that problem, either through training or through other recruitment efforts on the front end.
Sure, that's a great question. So yeah, recruiting has been a challenge for us. I would say that it's something that we're working hard on, and we're getting better. We've made some changes. We've made changes in some areas just in terms of what our recruiting requirements are, because we've had to, and because we are looking at things a little bit differently in some areas. We've also empowered our recruiters more. We've added, for example, a Navy Reserve recruiting command right next to our active duty recruiting command. So because the recruiting challenge is not only active duty, but also reserves, civilians, everything. So we've basically stepped up how we resource that, how we message things, a lot more focus on social media and areas where younger people live. So I'll tell you, aside from just the recruiting, just getting people interested to come and want to join the service, and this is true of all the military services. I think the Marines still do the best, but we also then face that an unfortunately high percentage of the folks that are interested in joining don't end up being able to pass the fitness test or maybe pass the academic side. So what we've done is we now have programs so that those people can come into the Navy and go through training for whatever it is that they need a little help with. And so we have them either working through their, whether it's physical fitness, and they have to, some people actually have to learn how to have a physical fitness program in their life. Some people need help with nutrition. Some people have, they maybe have a medication that, you know, a few years ago we wouldn't have accepted, but now we're working more closely with health professionals to be able to see if we can make that work for that person. So we've got a lot of efforts. We've also expanded the age of folks that can come into the Navy, so that's actually been helpful. And so with all those efforts, we are a lot closer to what we need, but it's something that we have to work really, really hard at. Like, we can't let up. And then in a lot of places, as I mentioned earlier, people don't think about the military as it's just not something to think about. So we have to get the word out. So our recruiters around the country are really active trying to work those issues. And one of the things we try to do on these trips is talk to universities and even high schools, just to kind of let people know that it's a career option. But it's a tough problem. And the good news is, though, when somebody comes in, from what I've seen, and just a few months ago I was at Great Lakes presiding over a basic training graduation, which was one of the more rewarding things that you get to do as an admiral. But just talking to the young people that are coming in is so incredible, because it's such a different generation from the generation that I'm in when we joined. But these folks they're ready, and they're smart, and they want to do things. They want to make a difference. But some of them had to work really hard to get in. They had to go through training beforehand for maybe the physical fitness part. But then once they get all the way through that, I think they're even more dedicated than had they just come in and it had been easy. So, you know, I guess that's a positive. But hopefully that answers the question.
Admiral, thank you. I'm Tom Bonert, and before my question and my comment first, I want to tell you that I remember your mother, Hannah, very well, and others in the room do too. And she was not only a wonderful person, but a wonderful Rotarian, and it was truly a pleasure to serve with her on the International Service Committee, which I'm certainly not surprised that was an interest of hers. There is a newsletter that I used to get that was very fascinating. It covered the range from investments to politics to international. And the writer would often say, there's not a morning that a leader of an adversary nation doesn't wake up and wonder, where is the U.S. Navy today? And I never thought about that before, but that really is true. And then I started thinking through history, how could a small country like Portugal or Netherlands become so powerful? Navy. So here's my question. With regard to chess, I am woeful. But where your fleets are deployed, it's a mystery to me how much pre-planning, pre-thought has to go into where the fleets are deployed. Obviously, in the Gulf, sure, I accept that. That's pretty logical. Pacific, get it. But there are other surprises. Our lives are ruled by surprises. I'm just curious, therefore, could you talk a little bit about the thought work that goes into where these fleets are deployed? Make sense?
Yeah, where we place the numbered commands, for example.
Yes.
Sure. I mean, it's going to be based on now. And granted, they've been there a long time. So at the time that they were placed there, it was based on things that were happening there. The fact that there's a combatant command covering a certain area. So, where does it make sense to put the service component for, Army, Navy, Air Force? So that, as I understand it, is how some of those decisions were made. Some of it, like Second and Third Fleet, those are major fleet concentration areas, and that's more of a protect the homeland mission. So those make sense for that purpose, and those are maybe more training, readiness-focused numbered fleets. And then the forward deployed ones are sort of where the tensions were, the situations were. But they've been there a long time, and we haven't had there hasn't been anything that's come up to say, hey, this numbered fleet is really in the wrong spot. So I think we've sort of we've identified that those are good places for those numbered fleets to be positioned.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hello, Admiral. My name is Kevin Fields. I'm Club Director and Secretary to the Club's Board of Directors. Thank you for being here, for your leadership. My question is on the topic of cybersecurity. You've touched on it some in response to some fellow Rotarians. But we're aware that the White House recently announced a cybersecurity strategy and implementation plan. And I was just wondering if you could briefly share a naval perspective on that plan, and if you could share with civilians like us what messages we need to know. All of us are targeted by various cyber attacks daily, and is there a message that we should take away from that plan that's been offered by the White House?
Sure. So I can really just speak to the Navy's, what we're doing for our area in implementing that plan. But I'll tell you that right now, based on where Congress has been going in terms of funding and direction, our cyber security operations, I guess, framework in the Navy, first of all, has gone from being something that we had viewed as a skill set within a different area. So, for example, cryptologic warfare used to be not only signals intelligence, electronic warfare, but also we had the cyber expertise. And then we had cryptologic technicians networks that were our enlisted cyber subject matter experts. But a couple of years ago, we started working towards a change to make cyber its own dedicated career field in the Navy. So that's one of the big changes. So to have its own resourcing, its own training pipeline. And so we now have the maritime cyber warfare designator, and we have the cyber warfare technician. So we have a new well, we basically took the CTN rating, added some other folks that had the right skills into that, and now we have the CWT rating, and then we have the MICLO, or Maritime Cyber Warfare Officer rating. So we've made it its own community. It's still within the information warfare umbrella community, but we've put a much more laser focus on that. So I think the resourcing, that includes that we now have commands dedicated to cyber, as opposed to it being one of a command line function. It's entire focus. And we have, not only do we have, Navy's cyber missions, but we support U.S. Cybercom's missions, the Cyber Mission Force, which is the teams that go out and provide, whether it's defensive or offensive cyber support. But all of those things we've been kind of developing and working for quite a while, but they've become much more strategically important as time has evolved. And right now, I think that, for example, in the work that we do in the Pacific Fleet, we don't necessarily have those cyber forces or experts directly on our staff, but we rely on the teams that these other, whether it's U.S. Cybercom or the Navy's 10th Fleet, which is the organization that would provide that for us, they've already committed resources to us. So we have dedicated teams. They're just coming from somewhere else, somewhere in a distributed region. But cyber is going to be a major player in any sort of crisis or conflict with China.
Thank you.
All right, real quick, so I know the Admiral has a meeting directly after this, so she won't be able to hang around, I don't think. Perhaps you can answer Corey's question since I booted him. I just would like to recognize the Navy veterans in the room. If you have served or are serving in the Navy, would you please stand? And if you have an immediate family member, I have a dad, a brother, an uncle, I have a bunch of Navy folks, a husband, father-in-law, brother-in-law. Would you stand if you have an immediate family member that served or is serving in the Navy?
Thank you very much, Adam. Appreciate your time today and your service. Next week, we have Brian Johnson, CFO of Dano Seasoning, and have till Monday to register, and hope to see you next week. We are adjourned.